Long before the world knew kings, empires, or written laws, a remarkable civilization was quietly taking shape in the Fertile Crescent between two mighty rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. This land, harsh yet bountiful, would soon become the stage for one of humanity's most extraordinary achievements, the birth of cities. Here, in the land we now call southern Iraq, the Sumerians emerged from scattered farming villages to create urban centers unlike anything the world had ever seen. They sculpted monumental structures from mud brick, harnessed water with intricate irrigation, and devised a system of writing that would transform memory itself into enduring symbols. Cuneiform. The rise of Sumer is a story of ambition, ingenuity, and mystery. How did these people, isolated in a land of unpredictable floods and scorching summers, craft the first cities and lay the foundations of civilization? What secrets remain buried beneath the sands of time, waiting to reveal how the human story truly began? As we journey into Sumer, we enter a world where gods walked among mortals, where towering ziggurats kissed the sky, and where the first flickers of human ingenuity set the stage for the history of all civilizations. The story of Sumer begins with its geography, a land both cursed and blessed by nature. The southern plains of Mesopotamia, known to the ancients as the land between rivers, were shaped by the Tigris and Euphrates, their waters carrying life and death in equal measure. Seasonal floods could rejuvenate the soil, turning arid land into fertile crescent fields rich in grain, barley, and dates. But these same floods were unpredictable, capable of washing away crops, homes, and lives. Survival demanded ingenuity, and the Sumerians would rise to meet this challenge. Archaeologists believe that by around 4500 BCE, small communities began to cluster along these riverbanks. The fertile soil supported intensive agriculture, while the rivers enabled early trade with distant regions. Clay, reeds, and fish were abundant, providing both materials and sustenance. This convergence of resources and environment laid the groundwork for a radical transformation. The shift from scattered villages to organized permanent settlements, the first cities in human history. The Sumerian people were not a homogeneous group. They were likely a mixture of indigenous farmers and migrants moving southward from the Zagros Mountains. Over generations, these populations adopted a shared language, culture, and religious worldview. They learned to manipulate their environment, digging canals, creating reservoirs, and mastering irrigation techniques that allowed them to control the very lifeblood of their civilization: water. The rivers did more than nourish crops. They shaped society itself. Settlements clustered along canals and tributaries, giving rise to interconnected communities with specialized labor. Farmers, craftsmen, traders, and priests each played a role in a growing social hierarchy. By the 4th millennium BCE, these settlements had begun to merge into city-states, each with its own governing authority, temple, and patron deity. Yet Sumer's rise was not without tension. The same rivers that gave life also demanded cooperation and ingenuity to manage. The struggle to harness water led to innovations in engineering and governance, but it also bred competition. Rival city-states would soon clash for resources, territory, and prestige, a pattern that would define Sumerian history for centuries to come. In this cradle of civilization, the interplay of geography and human determination created a society capable of astonishing achievements. From these early days along the Tigris and Euphrates emerged the Sumerians, the architects of the first cities and the writers of history itself. And yet, as the cities grew and flourished, shadows of uncertainty loomed on the horizon, waiting to test the resilience of this nascent civilization. Before the grand cities of Uruk or Ur, there was the Ubaid period, a time when the foundations of Sumerian society were quietly laid. Stretching from roughly 6500 to 3800 BCE, the Ubaid era is marked by an unprecedented sophistication in both material culture and social organization. Small villages dotted the southern Mesopotamian plain. Mud brick homes with rectangular layouts were the norm. Yet within these modest structures, remarkable innovations were unfolding. Pottery became more refined, often decorated with geometric patterns, signaling not only aesthetic awareness, but also the rise of artisanship as a valued social role. Families and communities began to specialize. Farmers cultivated grain and livestock, while potters, weavers, and toolmakers honed their crafts, creating objects that would one day circulate through trade networks. Irrigation was one of the Ubaid period's most transformative achievements. Canals, levees, and reservoirs allowed water to be diverted from the unpredictable rivers, turning marginal lands into fertile fields. These early hydraulic works required communal effort and planning, fostering cooperation and giving rise to proto-governance structures, early forms of civic administration that would eventually underpin city-states. The sacred was deeply intertwined with daily life. Temples, some of the earliest examples of monumental architecture, began to appear in Ubaid settlements. These structures were more than religious centers. They were also hubs for redistribution, storage, and administration. They represented the growing power of a priestly class that could coordinate labor, manage resources, and guide the community's spiritual life. Trade networks also expanded during this period. Even at this early stage, Ubaid communities reached out across the region, exchanging pottery, obsidian, shells, and other valuable goods. These interactions not only brought wealth, but also ideas, technologies, and cultural influences that would seed the explosive growth of urban centers in the centuries to come. By the end of the Ubaid period, the stage was set for a radical transformation. Villages had grown larger, settlements were more organized, and social hierarchies more pronounced. The first sparks of urban life were visible, foreshadowing the rise of true city-states. But as communities multiplied and became more complex, so too did the challenges they faced. The demands of coordination, defense, and resource management would soon give rise to the monumental urban centers for which Sumer is celebrated, and the conflicts that would threaten them. Uruk, emerging around 4000 BCE, was the jewel of southern Sumer, the first true city in human history. Covering an area of more than 2.5 square kilometers, its massive walls and bustling streets reflected a society that had transcended village life. Here, urban planning and monumental architecture converged to create a city that was not only functional but awe-inspiring. At the heart of Uruk lay the Anu Ziggurat and the White Temple, dedicated to the sky god Anu. These towering structures symbolized the divine authority that legitimized rulers and priests alike. The city's layout was carefully organized. Residential quarters, marketplaces, workshops, and temples each had designated areas, revealing a sophisticated understanding of urban logistics. Uruk was also the birthplace of cuneiform, humanity's first system of writing. Initially used to record trade, livestock, and grain, these wedge-shaped impressions on clay tablets soon evolved into a medium capable of expressing laws, myths, and literature. Epic tales, such as those later inscribed in the Epic of Gilgamesh, found their roots in the scribal culture of Uruk. Trade flourished, connecting Uruk to distant lands as far as Anatolia, the Iranian plateau, and the Persian Gulf. The city exported textiles, pottery, and grain, while importing precious stones, metals, and timber. This exchange of goods fueled wealth and cultural exchange, allowing Uruk to maintain its dominance for centuries. Despite its prosperity, Uruk's rise was not without tension. Competition with neighboring cities for water, land, and resources often erupted into skirmishes and warfare. Yet the city's influence endured, shaping Sumerian culture, religion, and politics for generations. Uruk stands as a testament to human ambition, where architecture, administration, and artistry merged to create the first urban civilization. Its legacy would ripple across the ancient world, echoing the capabilities and aspirations of early city dwellers. And as Uruk thrived, other cities were quietly rising, each destined to carve its own chapter in Sumerian history. South of Uruk lay Ur, a city steeped in religious and economic significance. Founded in the 4th millennium BCE, Ur became renowned for its devotion to Nana, the moon god. Towering above the city, the ziggurat of Ur reached skyward, a massive stepped pyramid that served as both a temple and a symbol of divine protection. Ur's location near the mouth of the Euphrates made it a hub for trade and maritime connections. The city prospered as merchants navigated rivers and canals, bringing goods from distant regions. Artisans crafted intricate jewelry, pottery, and cylinder seals, small engraved cylinders used to authenticate documents and possessions. These artifacts reveal a society deeply concerned with law, status, and aesthetic beauty. The social structure of Ur was highly stratified. Kings and priests held the highest authority, often intertwining governance and religion. Beneath them were skilled artisans, merchants, and farmers, while laborers and slaves formed the base of society. Daily life revolved around agriculture, religious rituals, and trade, with festivals marking the rhythm of the calendar and honoring the gods who controlled fate, fertility, and fortune. Ur's legacy extends beyond its wealth and religious devotion. Excavations have uncovered royal tombs, filled with treasures and evidence of elaborate funerary practices, offering glimpses into the city's complex societal values and beliefs about the afterlife. Yet, despite its grandeur, Ur faced pressures both internal and external. Competition for fertile land and water, coupled with the looming threat of rival city-states, created an undercurrent of tension. The city's splendor was both a symbol of achievement and a beacon for those who would challenge its dominance. Ur's story reminds us that prosperity in the ancient world was precarious, fragile, and always entwined with the capricious forces of nature and human ambition. Nestled between Uruk and Ur, Lagash may have been smaller, but it shone as a center of innovation, law, and artistic expression. Emerging around 2500 BCE, Lagash became famous for its rulers, such as Gudea, who commissioned impressive statues and reliefs celebrating both divine devotion and civic achievement. Lagash's artistic legacy is profound. Statues depict rulers in serene, contemplative poses, hands clasped in prayer, reflecting a society where piety and governance were inseparable. Reliefs illustrate religious ceremonies, military campaigns, and monumental construction projects, preserving the history and ideals of the city for millennia. Innovation extended to administration and law. Lagash produced detailed records of land distribution, labor, and trade, often inscribed on clay tablets. These records demonstrate a sophisticated bureaucracy capable of managing resources, labor, and taxation, ensuring the city's continued prosperity. The city's architecture, while less massive than Uruk or Ur, was nonetheless impressive. Temples, defensive walls, and public works highlight a focus on both practicality and the divine. In Lagash, the interplay of art, administration, and spirituality created a unique urban identity that contributed significantly to Sumerian civilization. Yet Lagash was not immune to conflict. Rivalries with neighboring city-states, particularly Umma, led to wars over borders and resources, immortalized in both art and inscription. These conflicts underscore the delicate balance between cooperation and competition that defined early urban societies. Lagash stands as a testament to the Sumerian ability to intertwine creativity, governance, and devotion, leaving an enduring imprint on the cultural and historical record of Mesopotamia. Around 3200 BCE, in the bustling heart of Uruk, the Sumerians invented something that would forever alter the course of human history: writing. This was not merely a tool for recording transactions or managing fields. It was the first step in capturing thought itself. From this moment, memory could exist outside the human mind, etched into clay for eternity. The earliest cuneiform signs were simple pictographs, pressed into soft clay tablets with a reed stylus. A pictograph of a fish represented, quite literally, a fish. Over time, these symbols evolved into abstract wedge-shaped impressions, capable of expressing sounds, ideas, and concepts. By transforming the ephemeral into the permanent, the Sumerians turned the mundane into history, recording everything from trade to astronomical observations. Cuneiform soon became the language of power. Kings issued decrees, priests chronicled rituals, and merchants recorded debts, all using these small clay tablets. Epic tales emerged, including stories of gods, heroes, and the very origins of mankind. The famous Epic of Gilgamesh, though written centuries later, preserves in its tales the spirit of Sumerian innovation and their understanding of mortality, friendship, and ambition. The power of writing extended beyond administration and literature. It allowed Sumerians to codify laws, such as those of Ur-Nammu, creating a system of justice that bound society together. In essence, cuneiform transformed the abstract into tangible order, giving the Sumerians the ability to shape their world, not just react to it. And yet, writing was also a double-edged sword. Once history could be recorded, It could also be manipulated, misinterpreted, or misremembered. These wedges of clay carry not only knowledge, but also the echoes of ambition, propaganda, and human desire, whispers of a civilization striving to understand itself. Sumerian innovation did not end with writing. Their cities rose from the plains in ambitious designs, dominated by monumental structures that still inspire awe today. Chief among these were ziggurats, towering stepped platforms of mud brick, their summits crowned with temples devoted to the gods. The ziggurat of dedicated to the moon god Nana, exemplifies this union of engineering and spirituality. Rising in layers like a celestial staircase, it symbolized the link between earth and heaven. Priests conducted rituals atop these platforms, mediating between mortals and deities, while the massive base housed storage and administrative offices, illustrating the interweaving of religion, governance, and urban function. Urban planning in Sumer was equally sophisticated. Cities were laid out with attention to water management, trade routes, and defensive structures. Streets and alleys connected residential areas to marketplaces and temples, reflecting a complex social and economic hierarchy. Houses of mud brick clustered into neighborhoods, yet the public spaces, temples, plazas, and granaries served as centers of civic life. Even ordinary infrastructure was revolutionary. Canals and irrigation systems ensured that every plot of land could be cultivated, while reservoirs and levees protected against the unpredictable floods of the Tigris and Euphrates. The Sumerians' ability to shape their environment demonstrates a remarkable blend of practicality, artistry, and foresight. In essence, Sumerian architecture was a language of power and faith, a physical manifestation of a society striving to order the chaos of the natural world. Their cities were living entities, pulsating with commerce, devotion, and ambition, monuments to a civilization that would leave its mark for millennia. Sumer's prosperity depended on more than agriculture and architecture. It thrived on trade. The rivers that nourished the land also served as highways, carrying goods and ideas between cities, regions, and even distant lands. Textiles, grain, and pottery flowed from Sumer, while timber, metals, and precious stones arrived from beyond the mountains and deserts. Markets were bustling centers of economic life, where merchants, farmers, and artisans negotiated exchange and innovation. The introduction of standardized weights and measures allowed for fairness and efficiency, while silver became an early form of currency, a tangible symbol of value. Trade was not merely commercial, it was cultural, bringing new ideas, technologies, and artistic influences into Sumerian cities. The economy also reflected social organization. Temples and palaces acted as major economic hubs, overseeing the distribution of resources and labor. Surplus goods were stored, redistributed, or used to fund monumental projects, bridging the gap between religion, politics, and daily life. Yet trade carried risks. Disputes over property, contracts, or borders could spark conflicts. The Sumerians responded with legal codifications, recording laws on clay tablets, ensuring that commerce could continue in an ordered and predictable manner. In this intricate web of production, exchange, and law, the Sumerians forged an economy that was as innovative as their architecture or writing, one that allowed cities to flourish and influence the ancient world. For the Sumerians, life was inseparable from the divine. The world was alive with gods and spirits, each overseeing different aspects of existence. Anu, the sky god, presided over heaven. Enlil, the god of air, controlled the winds and storms. Inanna, the goddess of love and war, influenced both desire and conflict. These deities were not distant abstractions. They intervened in daily life, demanding devotion, sacrifices, and rituals. Temples and ziggurats were the centers of this spiritual world, monumental reminders of humanity's place in the cosmic order. Priests acted as intermediaries, interpreting omens, performing ceremonies, and managing temple wealth. Religious festivals punctuated the year, blending devotion, celebration, and civic cohesion. Sumerian mythology provided explanations for the natural and social world. Creation myths, tales of floods, and epic journeys of heroes revealed the Sumerians' understanding of human ambition, morality, and the fragility of life. Stories such as the Epic of Gilgamesh explored mortality, friendship, and the desire for immortality, reflecting a culture deeply attuned to both earthly and divine concerns. Yet, religion also reinforced social order. Kings claimed divine sanction for their rule, while commoners were bound to rituals that affirmed their place within the cosmic hierarchy. In Sumer, the sacred and the secular were entwined, forming a society where devotion, governance, and daily life were inseparable. Sumerian society was structured, hierarchical, and surprisingly complex. At the top stood the king, often seen as divinely appointed, and the priests, who controlled religious and administrative power. Beneath them were merchants, artisans, and skilled laborers, whose crafts and trade underpinned the economy. Farmers and laborers formed the base, sustaining the civilization through toil and skill. Slaves, captured in war or debt, performed essential labor, yet their presence also reflects the social dynamics of power and control. Daily life revolved around work, religion, and family. Men and women participated in distinct roles, with women engaging in domestic management, weaving, and sometimes trade, while men labored in fields, workshops, or administrative posts. Children learned from parents, contributing to family work while gradually acquiring the skills that would define their social roles. Sumerians valued knowledge, mathematics, and astronomy. They developed a base 60 numbering system, facilitating trade, architecture, and even the measurement of time. Education, though limited, allowed scribes to record economic, religious, and literary texts, cementing the civilization's achievements for future generations. Despite societal stratification, there were moments of shared culture. Festivals, public rituals, and marketplaces brought communities together. Life was a delicate balance of devotion, labor, and leisure, a reflection of a civilization striving to control both the natural world and the human heart. Even as these social structures stabilized, challenges loomed. Environmental shifts, rivalries, and the fragility of urban life would soon test the resilience of the Sumerian world. The very rivers that had nurtured Sumerian civilization eventually became agents of strain. Over centuries, the constant irrigation that transformed arid plains into fertile fields caused the soil to become salinized. Crops failed, yields dropped, and once thriving farmlands turned increasingly barren. Farmers faced an unrelenting battle against nature itself, a struggle that demanded constant innovation but offered no guarantees. Deforestation and overgrazing exacerbated these problems. Wood used for construction and fuel became scarce, while grazing animals stripped vegetation from fragile lands. Canals silted up, requiring labor-intensive maintenance. A delicate balance between human ambition and environmental limits had been disrupted, threatening the very foundation of urban life. These environmental pressures were not isolated. They reverberated throughout the economy and society. Food shortages could provoke social unrest, strain political authority, and force cities to compete for dwindling resources. The brilliance of Sumerian innovation, irrigation, urban planning, trade, could not fully offset the consequences of centuries of exploitation. As the Fertile Crescent faltered, the first city-states faced the stark reality. The cradle of civilization was not immune to collapse. Nature, once a partner, had become an unpredictable and unforgiving adversary. Compounding these environmental stresses were human threats. Sumerian city-states, often fiercely independent, were in near-constant conflict over land, water, and prestige. Skirmishes could escalate into prolonged wars, draining resources and weakening defenses. Beyond intercity rivalry, external forces loomed. Semitic-speaking Akkadians to the north gradually encroached on Sumerian territory, bringing new rulers, languages, and administrative systems. Later, other peoples such as the Gutians and Elamites would raid and occupy Sumerian lands, further destabilizing the region. The once great cities of Uruk, Ur, and Lagash experienced cycles of conquest, occupation, and revival. Political instability fragmented the authority of kings and priests. Alliances were temporary, often forged out of necessity, and internal dissent threatened the cohesion of city-states. In this environment, Sumerian civilization, despite its remarkable achievements, became increasingly vulnerable. Its cities, monuments, and temples stood as reminders of past grandeur, yet the social and political fabric was fraying under external and internal pressures. The combination of environmental degradation and political instability created a perfect storm. Even the most enduring innovations, writing, irrigation, monumental architecture, could not halt the inexorable decline. Sumer, the cradle of civilization, teetered on the edge of history. Our understanding of Sumer comes not from legend alone, but from tangible remnants buried beneath millennia of soil and sand. Archaeology has unearthed entire cities, Uruk, Lagash, revealing the scale, sophistication, and complexity of urban life in the ancient world. Massive walls, ziggurats, and domestic quarters testify to advanced engineering, planning, and societal organization. Cuneiform tablets, thousands of which survive today, provide a direct window into Sumerian thought. These clay records, often mundane in appearance, document trade, legal codes, religious rituals, and epic literature. Through them, we witness the day-to-day lives of merchants, priests, artisans, and rulers, and we glimpse the priorities, fears, and ambitions of an ancient people. Artifacts reveal further dimensions of Sumerian civilization. Cylinder seals, exquisitely engraved, functioned as personal signatures, demonstrating both artistry and administrative sophistication. Sculptures, such as those of Gudea of Lagash, capture the aesthetic sensibilities and religious devotion of rulers. Tools, pottery, and jewelry illustrate technological skill, craftsmanship, and trade networks extending across Mesopotamia and beyond. Excavations also illuminate societal organization and economy. Granaries and storage facilities reflect centralized management of food and resources. Temple complexes reveal the interweaving of religious, political, and economic power. The spatial arrangement of cities, residential, industrial, and ceremonial districts, speaks to deliberate urban planning and social hierarchy. Even environmental evidence preserved in soil and pollen confirms what texts suggest. Sumerians faced changing rivers, salinized soils, and ecological stress. Archaeology and texts together paint a vivid, tangible picture of a civilization that was as fragile as it was brilliant, capturing the triumphs and trials of humanity's earliest urban society. Though Sumer eventually fell, its impact reverberates through history. The innovations of these early city builders, writing, irrigation, law, and urban planning, became the bedrock upon which subsequent Mesopotamian civilizations, including the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians, would build. Cuneiform endured for millennia, influencing administration, literature, and scholarship across the ancient Near East. The concept of city-states, centralized governance, and codified law informed political structures far beyond Mesopotamia. Religious beliefs, myths, and epic narratives shaped cultural identities and inspired countless stories, echoing themes of heroism, morality, and human ambition. Even today, Sumer offers a cautionary tale. Its rise and fall demonstrate both the power of human ingenuity and the vulnerabilities of civilization to environmental and social pressures. In its clay tablets, ziggurats, and ruins, we find the earliest expressions of what it means to organize, innovate, and aspire. Lessons that continue to resonate in our modern world. Sumer is not merely an ancient civilization. It is the origin story of urban life, law, literacy, and the human urge to leave a mark upon the earth. Its legacy is the foundation of the cradle of civilization itself, reminding us that the achievements of humanity are both remarkable and fragile. Even after decades of archaeological exploration, Sumerian civilization retains its aura of mystery. While much is known, certain questions remain unanswered, inviting speculation, debate, and wonder. How did a relatively small population develop such advanced urban systems, writing, and monumental architecture seemingly without precedent? Some researchers propose that Sumerian innovations may have been influenced by contacts with distant lands. Trade networks certainly extended to Anatolia, the Iranian plateau, and the Persian Gulf, bringing materials and ideas. Could these connections have seeded knowledge that accelerated Sumer's development, or did human ingenuity alone give rise to these extraordinary achievements? Other theories border on the extraordinary. A small but vocal group of scholars and enthusiasts suggests that lost civilizations, or even extraterrestrial visitors, may have contributed to Sumer's sudden brilliance. While mainstream academia treats such ideas with caution, they persist in popular imagination, fueled by enigmatic artifacts, unexplained technological feats, and monumental architecture whose construction still puzzles modern engineers. Even within conventional understanding, mysteries abound. Why did writing emerge so abruptly in Uruk? How were massive ziggurats constructed with such precision using only mud brick and rudimentary tools? What was the full scope of Sumerian astronomical knowledge, hinted at in tablets recording lunar cycles and celestial events? The sands of southern Mesopotamia guard these secrets jealously. Every excavation, every tablet, and every artifact provides tantalizing clues, yet the complete picture remains elusive. Perhaps some answers are forever lost, buried beneath millennia of sediment, waiting for intrepid explorers or future discoveries to reveal them. Sumer remains both known and unknowable, a civilization whose tangible achievements are rivaled only by the mysteries that still surround its origins, knowledge, and ultimate decline. The story of Sumer is the story of humanity itself, daring, inventive, and endlessly striving to master both the natural world and the human spirit. From scattered villages along the Tigris and Euphrates emerged the first cities, monumental temples, intricate laws, and the very concept of written memory. Though time and turmoil erased much of Sumer's physical presence, its legacy endures. Writing, governance, urban planning, trade networks, and myths of gods and heroes echo across the centuries, shaping civilizations yet to come. In clay tablets, ziggurats, and ruins, we glimpse the ingenuity and ambition of a people who sought to define their world and leave a mark upon it. Sumer teaches us that civilization is both fragile and enduring. Its rise illuminates the power of human creativity. Its decline warns of nature's limits and the consequences of overreach. As we reflect on this cradle of civilization, we are reminded that the first cities were more than settlements. They were the birthplace of human ambition, imagination, and the endless quest to understand the world and ourselves. The sands of Mesopotamia still whisper their secrets. And if we listen closely, Sumer's voice speaks across millennia, inviting us to marvel, to question, and to remember that even in the dawn of history, the human story had already begun.